welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, January 14th, 2021. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. As the country continues to see an increase in COVID-19 cases, with 340 confirmed cases, of which 234 are active, there is also the issue of dengue, with 2020 recorded as the most severe outbreak in recent history. The last report provided by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment on the number of dengue cases in the country was in November last year, which gave a figure of 1,617 laboratory confirmed cases. At a virtual news conference yesterday, epidemiologist Tamara Bob said since then there were more than 150 new cases recorded, bringing the total number of laboratory confirmed cases to 1,790.
Last report would have been in November, where we had 1,617 laboratory confirmed cases. We had an update just a couple days ago. We are now at 1,790 cases. So between November's up and January 8th, we recorded an additional 173 cases of dengue.
Children 15 years and under were reportedly most affected, with 7 deaths in 2020. The mosquito-borne disease continues to affect all health districts across the country, but is more prevalent in Pembroke, Kingstown, Calico, and Georgetown. As dengue, the common cold, flu, and COVID-19 exhibit similar symptoms, which can often be confused for one another. SVG-TV News took the time to speak with infectious disease specialist Dr. Gerald Thompson, who is an advisor on the COVID-19 task force, to help explain the differences. Dr. Thompson highlighted the major differences between the flu and COVID-19. He said while both can occur with fevers and a cough, the cough an individual develops with the flu usually occurs later in the illness, while COVID-19 exhibits an earlier onset of coughing and a loss of taste and smell.
These viruses typically have a fever, and the flu, you could say its hallmark is with fever, muscle aches, headaches, and fatigue. And those tend to fade away, and then by day 4, you then start to have a cough sometimes and a sore throat. Right? So the sore throat usually comes a little late. Now, on the other hand, COVID-19 also comes with fever. It also has a cough very early and can have shortness of breath. We sometimes see muscle aches and a sore throat, but a runny nose is rare with COVID-19. So with sneezing, you don't see sneezing. You've lost your sense of taste and your sense of smell in COVID-19.
Dr. Thompson further explained the hallmark symptoms for the flu and COVID-19.
For COVID-19, you have to be more worried about if you have fever, shortness of breath, and if you have some sort of cough. For flu, it is fever and muscle aches, headaches, and fatigue.
According to Dr. Thompson, dengue, COVID-19, and the flu all occur with fever. However, he said the fever associated with dengue is usually high, while with COVID-19 and the flu, mild fever is observed. He said the common cold does not usually display fever and is often associated with a runny nose and sneezing.
In the case of dengue also has fever. But the fever of dengue is usually high. We're talking a fever of 103. So whereas COVID and the flu, you have a temperature of 100, 101. Mild fever. Dengue, the fever is high. And with dengue, we get worried about headaches. But the type of headache you get worried about is pain in the back of the eye. We call retroorbital pain. pain in the back of the eye. So if you have fever and you have pain in the back of the eye, and you also have fatigue, then think dengue.
The infectious disease specialist said persons should be worried when dengue symptoms include bleeding.
Now, we get worried about dengue when dengue progresses. If you start having nausea and vomiting, if you start having pain in your belly, and if you start having any signs of bleeding, because dengue is notorious for affecting your blood. It can destroy the stuff that the platelet counts that forms a scab. And you can just start to bleed from your nose, from your ears, from your eyes, from your mouth, from your stomach. And we get worried about that. But the hallmark of dengue is being bitten by a mosquito and having a high fever, having pain in the back of the eye, headaches, and sometimes a cough and fatigue.
Dr. Thompson noted that while it is often difficult to differentiate between the viral illnesses, persons should be on alert for each hallmark symptoms. With the recent surge in COVID-19 cases, having adequate medical supplies has been a challenge, which Chief Medical Officer Dr. Simone Keyser-Beach said is a global issue. However, at a virtual news conference yesterday, she said at present SVG has enough supplies, with more orders being made.
We have had challenges, and that's a worldwide challenge in terms of supplies during this entire pandemic. Supplies in terms of the labs and supplies in terms of the infection prevention and control equipment. And so there is a challenge there in St. Vincent. We currently have sufficient supplies in our healthcare facilities and in storage. We have ordered more. We have been generously helped by PAHO and other non-governmental organizations and the private sector also.
The CMO said that they are now carefully managing the resources available and made an appeal to all healthcare workers to continue to use the supplies sparingly.
Shortage, and we need to be very careful in the way in which we use our resources. So for now, we are doing extremely strict management of the resources we have. We are pleading with all our healthcare workers and the community in general that we should use these resources carefully, even as we maintain the basic principles of infection prevention and control.
More than 25,000 reagents are expected in a few weeks' time to carry out COVID-19 PCR tests. To date, 24,000 of these tests have been done. The local embassy of the Republic of China on Taiwan today handed over 14,700 pieces of Taiwan-developed COVID-19. More than 25,000 reagents are expected in a few weeks' time to carry out COVID-19 PCR tests. To date, 24,000 of these tests have been done. The local embassy of the Republic of China on Taiwan today handed over 14,700 pieces of Taiwan-developed COVID-19 antigen rapid tests. More than 25,000 reagents are expected in a few weeks' time to carry out COVID-19 PCR tests. To date, 24,000 of these tests have been done. The local embassy of the Republic of China on Taiwan today handed over 14,700 pieces of Taiwan-developed COVID-19 antigen rapid tests to the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment. The COVID-19 antigen rapid tests were donated by the Taiwanese manufacturer Taidoc Technology Corp. And Fora Care Foundation. The medical assistance will help strengthen SVG's capacities to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. The donation is the concrete practice of the public-private collaboration, which upholds the spirit of Taiwan can help to combat the COVID-19 pandemic and to fulfill the World Health Organization's goal of health for all. Since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, the government of the Republic of China on Taiwan has assisted the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in preventing and controlling the pandemic through several donations of medical supplies and other support. Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday said COVID-19 relief packages should be continued by government, as he said they will support this program in the upcoming budget debate. Noting the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on Vincentians, Dr. Friday said that serious consideration must be given to cushion the economic impacts felt by many. He said that last year, in some cases, the support offered was not sufficient.
That there must be, as a priority, financial support to persons who have been economically affected negatively by this pandemic. And there are a lot of people in this country who are hurting right now. You heard me say several months ago, you must put the money where the pain is, back in April. Well, that is even more relevant today because more people are feeling the pain. The package of assistance that the government provided some time ago for most people had dried up. It was never sufficient in any event. And it can't be a situation where you say, well, we don't help them already, let me move on. Can't move on from people who are suffering.
The NDP leader said due to the economic hardship, some businesses are closing down and something has to be done about this.
Many businesses are closing and some of them are closing for good. They're not just shut up for the season. They're done because they can't make it. They're providing a public service. You don't want them to feel that they have to push the envelope or disregard what they know is better for them and for their customers because it's putting too much an economic strain on them.
Dr. Friday said COVID-19 will be here for some time, and while there is a light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines coming on stream, the government has to allow health officials to carry out their work professionally.
There is too much political calculation in what is said and done by public officials for public consumption. The professionals in the Ministry of Health must be guided by science and experience, not by politics. It must always be what makes the people safe and what makes them feel safe, not what makes the government look good or sound good. So I say to the health department officials, give the proper scientific advice, honestly and fully. That is your role.
Meanwhile, on radio last Sunday, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said $8.4 million was paid out by the government and the National Insurance Services in unemployment benefits last year as part of the COVID-19 relief support program. He said 4,309 persons from the hospitality sector, including seafarers, have benefited from the program, and they are now looking to see how the benefits can be continued despite the economic impacts. Some updated news now on the Lasso Freya volcano. Measurements of the extrusive materials from the new dome as well as testing of the temperatures were carried out today by the team of scientists, including the two who came in yesterday from Montserrat. In an interview with SVGTV News this afternoon, head of the team, Professor Richard Robertson, said that the dome has grown to about 6 meters above the crater floor and is growing laterally on both crater walls. Dr. Robertson said that while conditions today were not quite suitable, they were still able to determine that the minimum temperature is 200 degrees Celsius and one of the gas present is carbon dioxide.
We had one of the scientists, I was on the flight with two scientists from MPO, and they took a thermal camera, so we have some thermal images of the dome, so we could look and see which areas are hottest. We have a better idea of which areas in the dome are hottest. And the conditions weren't perfect for measuring temperatures, but we got sort of some minimum temperatures of different parts of the dome. As on better conditions, you probably get better estimates of the temperatures. And at present, the temperatures in the areas that we saw are at least 200 degrees Celsius in some places, and these are minimum temperatures. The other thing that we did is that we took an instrument up and got an estimate of some of the gases, and even though, again, conditions weren't good, we now know that there are certain kinds of gases coming out of the volcano. And one of them, particularly, is one that if you go down into the crater, or if you're probably on the crater rim, you could be in harm's way, because one of them is something called carbon dioxide, which is the thing we breathe out.
The geologist said that the rate of growth of the new dome is not as fast as it was when it first started effusing, and contrary to reports, it is not as big as the original dome.
In terms of relative size, in terms of height, the new dome, I would guess, is less than half the height currently of the old dome, and certainly in terms of absolute size, in terms of volume, it is much less than the volume of the old dome. The new dome, last estimate we had was 1.5 million cubic meters. That's about a couple of days ago. I suspect it's a little bit more than that, probably about 2 or a little bit over 2 million cubic meters in terms of volume. And the old dome is a couple of hundred cubic meters in volume. So it's much different in size. It occupies a much larger area. The old dome is not as big as it yet. Of course, if it keeps on growing, it will get bigger, and it probably would occupy a lot more space. It's difficult to see it being as big as, because you simply don't have that volume of space inside there to fill it at this present time.
Meanwhile, today, new videos emerged on social media of an individual who took pictures and videos from inside the crater where the new dome is developing, even as scientists and officials from the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, have discouraged persons from doing so. Dr. Robertson said that it sends a wrong message to the public and noted that the person who has been visiting the dome is causing harm to himself and sets a bad precedence. Dr. Robinson said that carbon dioxide, which is the gas being emitted, has no smell and could put someone to sleep without knowing it.
You could be in harm's way, because one of them is something called carbon dioxide, which is the thing we breathe out. Now, the other gases that you have, which we have spoken about, which could not be good and put you in harm's way, are the sulfur-rich gases, which could be very acidic. But carbon dioxide is one that you will not smell. So if you're in the crater itself, or if you're in the rim, it certainly could put you in harm's way, because you simply fall asleep and not wake up, essentially. And so that's what we've been doing, and I guess it's a good time to reinforce the point that people who visit the crater just for sightseeing are not helping themselves or not helping the monitoring effort, and really giving the public the impression that things are much less dangerous than it actually is. And it's just a matter of time that before one of them put themselves in serious harm. And God forbid, somebody will have to try to rescue them in those conditions, which will be practically impossible.
Dr. Robinson said that the videos and pictures do not help the scientists, and again pleaded for persons to desist from visiting the volcano or even going down into the crater.
Because you have survived on one occasion does not mean that it is safe for everyone to do so. Going into the volcano by way to the crater of the volcano involves going down steep slopes, which by themselves are dangerous. To go into the volcano, even without anything else happening, it involves a risk. By going into the volcano, which already has risk associated when it is also erupting, even though it is only erupting effusively, which appears to be quiet and appears to be quite safe, has additional risks associated, which individuals don't completely understand, and therefore they're taking risks with their own lives, which is fine. They could go ahead, you make your own decision. But when you do it and broadcast it, you're suggesting to others that they can also take risks. So in a sense, you're proposing a kind of action which everyone cannot, if they do, would end up somebody seriously being hurt, which is why me personally, as I've mentioned, was studied this volcano for most of his life. I'm particularly displeased on that action because it's making my people think of going and put themselves in harm's way, which don't make sense to me.
The 2021 budget estimates will be presented in Parliament on Wednesday, January 27th, while Budget Day will be held on Monday, February 1st, 2021. This was announced by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on his weekly appearance on NBC Radio on Wednesday.
The law requires that I do the estimates. We take the estimates to Parliament. We lay them before the end of the month of January. And I was hoping to have done it a week earlier. But over last weekend, some of the narrative for some of the ministries I didn't consider sufficiently coherent. There was some change in permanent secretaries, there were some drafts, and so they had to finalize their work. So that I was disappointed that that work was not finalized properly.
PM Gonsalves said though the budget presentation is a couple of weeks away, the government work continues. In the month of January, even though the estimates have not been presented, the answer is yes. You can spend 1/12 of what was spent last year. 1/12 of the approved budget last year, which would be both the actual budget itself plus the supplementary in April. And then that's on the recurrent side, and on the capital side, you can spend any amount of money so long as it's issued under the warrant of the Minister of Finance. So it doesn't prevent the work of the government going on. That's the point I make. The Prime Minister added that arrangements are being made to have a big virtual consultation with the business community on the budget estimates. He said there will also be consultations via radio for farmers, the working class, and the general public, and the dates will be announced by the Finance Minister.
My suggestion is that for the business community, banks, tourism sector, to do one big consultation with them. They can have different segments virtually, because those persons would have access virtually to that kind of technology and to do their work. They're accustomed doing that. That you can have such a consultation too with the leaders of the unions and farmers, but that he should come on the radio and do a 2-3 hour consultation for the purposes of farmers, fishermen, and working people. General public too, but farmers, fishermen, and working people whom they would normally meet.
And PM Gonsalves said the preliminary budget overturns for 2020 up to December show a 1% increase in current revenue compared to 2019. On the radio yesterday, he highlighted other areas where they have seen increases in the budget outturns.
Preliminary outturn shows that current revenue went up by just under 1% over 2019. Revenue and grants went up 5.3%. Total expenditure went up by 12.7%. Capital expenditure went up by 5.9%. Sorry, current expenditure went up by 5.9%. And the capital expenditure went up by almost 50%. There is a current account deficit of just over $32 million, because if your revenue is basically even Steven like last year, though your grants went up a little, and your expenditure went up by 12.7%, it would follow that you'll have a a deficit on the current account.
PM Gonzalez noted the 2021 budget will be crafted in a very challenging context.
I had said before that the first 10 months at least of this year going to be quite challenging. When I said so, persons say, he's not giving any hope. If I had said, oh, the next 10 months are going to be easy, the critics will say, well, Ralph is trying to gloss over the challenges we have. So all you have to do is speak the truth as you see it. But the fact of the matter is this: we have been able to meet the challenges reasonably well thus far. And I anticipate that despite all the challenges, we should together be able to meet them again with reasonable success.
President of the SVG Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, said that the Ministry of Education has assured the union that finances have already been secured to deal with some of the challenges faced by some schools last year, and he is hoping work will commence soon to address these issues on the mainland and in the Grenadines. Robinson said after the general elections in November last year, the union met with officials of the Ministry of Education to discuss these and other issues.
Well, we had a meeting with the Ministry of Education just after the election. We were trying to get it before the election to have whoever wins rectify these things. And we didn't get that meeting, but it came shortly after the election. We had a meeting with the Ministry of Education. And we put on the table these outstanding and vexing issues. The Beckwith Community High School was one of them. And when we brought this to the attention of the general public, there were people who were saying that it's not true. It's not true. Those things do not exist. Yes, some work was done on a wing on that building in terms of the IT labs, the TVET, for the TVET services of the school, right? The library, woodwork, technical drawing, etc., and science. But the main part of the building, the fourth part of the building, that houses the staff room, most of the regular classrooms, and the principal's office, they're still in that state. The ministry give us the assurance that that would be done.
The SVGTU president said the issue of a new collective agreement was also raised during the discussion, and they're hoping this will be sorted out soon.
So these problems still exist. There are others that relate to our collective agreement, which we put on the table with the ministry. And we hope that in our follow-up meetings we'll be able to get the fruits of our discussion. Because we are trying to reinstitute what we call our quarterly meetings. We only come publicly when we've already exhausted all those avenues. That's why you see us sometimes on the media speaking. We don't just run to the media. But if the media calls and asks a question, you can't be mute. Because the union is an independent organization. We are not an arm of the ministry, nor arm of the government. We are free to speak. You know, but it's also good that when you have a conversation, if nothing happens, then you speak.
Robinson said the officials in the Ministry of Education seem willing to solve the problems raised by the SVGTU. However, the issue is that they have to rely on other ministries to get the work done.
Example, the erection of water tanks. Now Sufre is about to do something strange. We're hearing that the schools don't have, some of the schools don't have washroom facilities, no water storage. But I have been calling to upgrade the schools. Some of them, the water tanks are in the yard. All you have to do is erect the water tanks. And you could use the rainwater for storage, for flushing toilets, you know, and that sort of thing. So the authorities need to do the right thing. They know what they're supposed to do. But what happens? The Ministry of Education has to rely on other ministries. The officials in the Ministry of Education, they are willing. They are aware what should be done. And I believe that if the Ministry of Education had all the resources at their disposal, a lot of these problems would be fixed already. But they have to rely on BRAXA and other ministries to get the work done.
And the Roads, Buildings and General Services Authority, BRAXA, has completed renovation work on the Beckway Fish and Vegetable Markets. The project saw the repair of the roof, doors, windows and stalls of the markets, along with the repainting of the structures. BRAXA also installed new water pumps, lines and pipes in the fish market and replaced the toilets, light fixtures, plugs and outlets. BRAXA said the project was carried out at a cost of $105,000 EC and was done over an 8-week period. Shout It Out is a new short film and music video by Vincentian artist Hayden Bilinji and his team of creatives. Speaking to SVG-TV News about the film, Bilinji, who served as director and is the voice behind the music, explained that the song was inspired by the death of a loved one, while the film is an opportunity to showcase SVG's rich culture.
So Shout It Out came as a result of me exchanging ideas with a Vincentian producer. His name is Vinton Oliver of Hunter Flow Productions. The video concept came as a result of my involvement in the Garifuna Kalinago culture. We started in this project around June last year, to be honest. And I just thought we needed to take our time and do it properly. But the concept for the song came as a result of my friend whose father passed, and he was very distraught, and I wrote a song just to comfort him. So as a result, he got a song, I got a song.
Bilinji explained that the production of the video and short film was achieved on the backs of many individuals, including upcoming Vincentian filmmaker Joshua Anderson, makeup artists, actresses and actors, camera crew, a drone operator and a stunt coordinator who prepared him for his role in the short film. Proud of the Shout It Out production, Bilinji said his plan now is to create a Garifuna feature film.
The next move is to do the sequel. We're working on the sequel and the movie. We are going to feature the culture and the heritage of our people, our Garifuna, our Kalinago people. We cannot just glean over history as if it's not important. We have tremendous occurrences in our historic context where we would have evaded the colonizers for many decades. We have had formidable fighters and warriors that have kept us, our Durham safe for many, many decades, and we have to tell our story.
Shout It Out launches tomorrow, Friday, January 15, 2021. Persons can view it on Facebook Live at Hayden Bilinji's Facebook page or stream it on YouTube. In other news, police have arrested and charged Bali Alexander, a 19-year-old laborer of Victoria Village, with aggravated burglary. The police say, according to their investigations, between 5:20 p.m. on Saturday, January 9, 2021 and 12:03 a.m. on Sunday, January 10, 2021, the accused allegedly entered the dwelling house of a 48-year-old aviation officer of Calder as a trespasser with a gun to commit the offense of burglary. The accused man is expected to appear before the court to answer to the charge.